Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Tonight on America Decides, budget nail-biter. House Republicans decided this would be budget resolution week. Yesterday, Speaker Johnson asked for prayers. Today, there were invocations about the moral imperatives of getting fiscal sanity returned to Washington, leaving this question hovering over the entire process. Do Republican leaders in the House have sufficient votes to pass their multi-trillion-dollar budget blueprint? Stay tuned. Part of that conversation, how potential cuts to Medicaid could impact that outcome, and with it, much of the future of the Trump economic agenda.
I'm not sure why you're confused or why it's so hard to answer what 5 things you've done in the past week. Continued confusion as Elon Musk tries a second time to obtain from federal workers an answer to this question. What did you do last week? A list of 5 bullet points. Theoretically, if it's not submitted by tonight, midnight, those federal workers who don't comply might be fired. The White House says 1 million federal workers have already completed this task. Question, is it mandatory? This is a day that ends in Y, so as you might expect, President Trump signed more executive orders. Today, his focus was on copper, possibly placing tariffs on imports for the metal used in modern-day aircrafts, vehicles, ships, and other military hardware. I want to start tonight here at the desk with Aaron Navarro and Scott MacFarlane. Aaron, I want to talk to you first about 21 people who worked in something related to the Department of Government Efficiency who resigned today in what read to me like protest of what they're observing and what they no longer want to be associated with.
Yeah, that's right. These are 21 anonymous employees who are working in what is now known
as...
They're
real people.
Yes.
They just didn't release their names.
Correct. What is now known as the U.S. DOGE Services Department. They used to be in what was called the United States Digital Services Department, which was renamed DOGE on Trump's first day in office. So these are holdovers. These are not what you've heard of the 20-year-old software engineers that are making these cuts at DOGE. These were people that had already been there, and agency that really supplements the digital services of a lot of federal agencies. And in their letter, they lined out why they believe they cannot help DOGE in their effort. They said, quote, "We will not lend our expertise to carry out or legitimize DOGE's actions." And they also detailed how the day after Trump was inaugurated, White House officials came and did 15-minute interviews with people in this office, asking them to identify themselves, asking them about political loyalty, kind of showing where DOGE, formerly USDS and Digital Services, was heading.
And it sounded as if they are alarmed about some of the things that they have observed that the younger parts of the Department of Government Efficiency are undertaking in terms of federal data security and other aspects of their maneuvering around.
And they write that they were going to be integrated a bit more fully into that effort. And these, at least according to the list of anonymous employees, a lot of them were engineers. So on the technical aspect, would be used and utilized to carry out the mission Elon Musk has set for DOGE.
And about this to-do list, what does the White House have to say about that?
Well, in the Oval Office just now, President Trump said if employees don't write back, they will end up eventually losing their jobs. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, seemed to again say that it is up to federal agency heads to determine what respondents, non-respondents, the fate for them. But again, federal agencies have DOGE employees within them. They're the ones identifying the cuts. I kind of don't believe that the federal agency head would buck the president or DOGE workers when it comes to time to potentially terminate these workers.
We shall see. Scott, this is a time of many overhaul efforts within the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. What is most on your mind this afternoon?
Well, the instability is itself a problem. If you have a bunch of new bosses coming into any workplace, there's going to be a little instability. If you have a whole wave of new rules coming into a workplace, there's going to be some instability. But this is different. This is of a different magnitude, Major. We have FBI agents telling us that they're worried any minute now that email is going to pop up in their inbox, that they've been put on leave or that they've been fired because of either retaliation for being part of the January 6th investigation or because of changes at the top and reassignments that come from there. It's hard to function as an FBI agent, as a public health official, as somebody there trying to watch out for security threats or risks if you're worried about your job every few minutes. And that self That in itself is becoming a problem. The inability to know where you're going to be tomorrow destabilizes the Justice Department, and you don't want the Department of Justice necessarily to be focused on things other than chasing terrorists, child predators, and violent gangs.
And remind the audience what experience Kash Patel as the head of the FBI and Dan Bongino, now Deputy Director of the FBI, bring to the Bureau itself.
Well, they bring a mandate to be change agents, and they bring brands as change agents and people who are going to execute.
Who've said a lot of things about the FBI, but never actually been in it until now.
And that's distinctive. Neither has any FBI experience. You know how rare it is to have the top two officials with no FBI experience? Never happened before in 117 years of the Bureau's existence. That's caused concern among some of the current agents. In fact, Major, the FBI Agents Association, which represents current agents, had pleaded with Kash Patel to install somebody with institutional memory into the number 2 position because that person has their fingerprints all over the day-to-day operations. That didn't happen. So there's the potential. More turnover, more retirements, more resignations due to the culture change here.
Very quickly, Brian Driscoll, there is some drama about him. Who is he and what's the drama?
He was the acting FBI director before Kash Patel and pushed back on that request from the Department of Justice and Trump's allies to collect all the names of the FBI agents who were part of the January 6th investigations. We're waiting to see what happens with him if he still has a home at the FBI now that Kash Patel's in charge.
Scott MacFarlane, Aaron Navarro, thank you very much.